meeting, and let me open with a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for this opportunity to learn and to grow. And I pray you be with every department in Garland County, Father, county judge, law enforcement, all of those who oversee this county, Father. Be with them and guide them and lead them. In Jesus' name we give thanks. Amen. Okay. And so we don't have a lot of our groups here, our departments, but Jeff, give Larry and I an update,
for them,
all of us.
Because I deal with the department heads on a regular basis, so.
Yeah, you turn it on right here in the, and I'll turn mine off.
I usually don't have to talk very loud, but it helps if you have it on. So, I was going to say that normally I deal with a lot of the departments on a regular basis, so they pretty much know most of what's going on. So this is as much for y'all as it is for them anyway. So appreciate you too, willingness to serve on this committee and keep us going. But I'll just kind of fill you in. Not too much been going on. That's why we deferred the meeting for a couple months. But it's budget time, and so we wanted to get together and give the departments an opportunity to come and discuss any issues they may have for the upcoming budget. I think a lot of them have asked questions that had questions, but I don't know that we've had that many. As far as just general updates, I would mention that we went through an exhaustive process on picking a new managed service provider for our endpoint detection and response. And in English, what that means basically is all of our computers have software running on them to help protect us. What most of us used to call antivirus software, but it's not called antivirus software anymore. It's called endpoint detection and response software, because the idea with it in the old days, the antivirus software was intended to basically look for patterns, look for kind of basic things, and then block those. The newer software is much more sophisticated in that it looks for things that might actually appear to look like a virus, or to do things on your machine that aren't supposedly, that's something that a normal person would normally do, and then tries to not only see what's going on and warn you about those, but actually respond to them. That's the response part, where and the response actually is to cut your machine off the network. So if it detects that you have some kind of a bad thing, or that what it perceives as bad, it will literally disconnect your network connection and make your machine stop talking to the rest of the network. So for ransomware and issues like that it would hopefully stop you from proliferating that around the network. So anyway, we went through a long process, and we had a company called Carbon Black for the last 4 or 5 years, 6 years, I'm not sure exactly how long it was without my notes, but regardless, it was beginning to look a little long in the tooth, and basically it wasn't as sophisticated and as kind of modern as some of the other tools that are out there. And so through a long process, we chose a vendor that provided us that software, and then also the management of that software. And what the management piece does is they actually have security specialists that are actually monitoring the activity of our machines through what they call a security operations center, a SOC, and on a day in, day out, 24/7. So all day, every day, all night. And if they see anything going on, they can also disconnect our machines. And so that particular software is running on, I want to say its numbers around 400. No, maybe it's 350. But anyway, it's on pretty much every machine that we have that's on the domain network, which is kind of the core. We have a lot of, so whether you're aware or not, we have a lot of machines that are what we call domain machines. And what that means is you have access to servers, you have access to files, shares, you have access to a lot of the things that you can collaborate with. And then we have a lot of machines that are off network, that basically are kind of standalone machines. And so we don't protect those machines to the same extent we do the on-premise, on-network machines, obviously. And so anyway, there's a difference in the numbers there. But So all the domain machines have that application now, and that vendor is watching those. We have had that in the past, so this isn't something we haven't had. It's just it was time to research new opportunities and explore different software. And so we basically put out a proposal for that software and then said, who can provide this software and this management service, and through that process, we chose a vendor. And so anyway, that's something that we've done over the last 3 months. That's unfortunately, or fortunately for y'all, most people don't know we did it because we basically have remote access software that we pulled the old software off the machines, and we put the new software on the new machines and set all that stuff and configured it up, and nobody ever knew, because it all happened seamlessly.
What was the name of that vendor?
So the vendor is ThinkGuard.
ThinkGuard?
Yep.
I had a question. We usually don't wait till the end, but since we're on this.
Sure.
Since the proliferation, sounds like the proliferation of AI,
Yep.
and since the potential for AI to be used not only by one body of people or government or whatever, with all of the intelligence that was going after hacking and ransom and all of that, when that AI gets in the hands of the people that only had whatever hardware, whatever potential they had, are they going to be able to hack like exponentially?
So I don't know that AI is going to change. It's funny, but right now AI is a really good thing. If you haven't used it, go to a website called ChatGPT, ChatGPT. Or Google that. You can't actually go to the website. Google it, and then it'll send you to the website because it's actually a longer URL than that. But anyway, if you're a writer, if you want to write anything, if you want to write, it doesn't matter what you want to write. You basically go and you say, hey, I want to write a letter about this. And you talk to it just like you were chatting with another individual, and you were asking them questions and you were telling them what you wanted to tell them. And through that process, it'll start writing a letter, or it'll start writing an essay, it'll start writing an email, and it's really cool. And if you're not, I'm a technical guy, but I'm not, and I did okay in college English and high school English and all that, so it's not like I'm completely inadequate, but I wasn't the greatest writer, and I write more in a technical, analytical way that is not probably pleasing to a lot of people, And so anyway, you can take, even if you think you're an okay writer, you can put stuff in this Chat GPT, and it'll suggest, better ways for you to write. But you can literally say, you can put stuff you've already written in there and say, hey, improve this, or you can just say, write this for me, and it'll literally spit out an essay or an email or a letter defining what you want to find. So that site, and basically what it's doing is, it's like if you could remember every letter ever written about a topic that's ever been exposed, and you had it in your brain, and you were able to recall that and put that together. That's what this engine's doing, right? It's taking all the data on the internet somewhere, and it's saying, I know all this stuff, and so if you ask me about this, I can recall this. It does go back in time some, so it's like you can't ask it, I don't know what the time frame is, but anything in the last 3 years or 5 years, it doesn't know, because it's still learning all that.
Okay.
It only learned all the other stuff. At least that's my understanding of it, and like I said, people here may know more about it than I do, but that's my limited understanding of it. But it's really cool for that. So it's cool for programming. So I went out to National Park, and they were talking about that, and the programming professor out there was talking about, he was embracing it because it helps. It's kind of like his analogy was, when we were kids, most of us are older here, he's not, but he won't understand this reference, but when we were kids, we couldn't use a calculator in school, right?
Right.
The math teacher was like, you can't have a calculator, that's a bad thing, and now if you go to school, they're like, you have to have this, $300 calculator to even go to high school now. And so that's his analogy, is this tool is really a good thing, you just have to learn how to use it for good.
Sure.
But as far as programming goes, I don't know that it's going to, I don't know that it's going to make what they're doing any easier, any better, or, I don't know. Like I said, the people that are out there are smart, and they're figuring out ways to get into our stuff. And I've told you guys this many times. It's not the first time, but that it's we're basically just putting our fingers in holes in the dam, and it's not like we can stop them. This new MDR EDR solution is just another layer of defense and another approach to try to help delay the inevitable, is what I would say. If they want to get to us bad enough and they want to own us, they're going to. Will AI help that? I don't know. The reality is there's so much out there, and like I said, that's with technology in general. Obviously, you look back to when we were young and to now. I mean, it's phenomenal, the change that we've seen in our lifetimes, right? And so it's hard to even imagine what's going to happen with AI or any of this other stuff between now and then. But I assume it's like everything else. It'll be a tool, and it'll be used, and people that are using it for bad will be counter-opposed to the people that are using it for good. And maybe, if the bad things can come in, and like I said, I'm an optimist, so sorry.
That's good.
But ultimately, I think that everything will kind of even out. It'll be okay.
Well, good.
So I'm not really, I have people fear the AI thing all the time and talk about being, and I'm like, oh no, this is, but I don't really see it that way.
With my limited knowledge, it just seemed like something that was so big and so invasive, if it were used for invasive purposes, that it might just set it on a new path of,
And I could be, an ostrich with my head in the sand, I mean, I'm not going to say I'm not, because like I said, a lot of the things that I talk about and think about are, like I said, I take the optimist approach, but ultimately I could be completely wrong. But
Jeff,
thank you.
but isn't it true that we have a banking computer that's not used for anything except for banking? So it's not like they can hack our bank. They can hack our records, but they can't really hack our bank because, it's designated just for banking, and Vivian doesn't.
so that's not necessarily true. So
Well, they could, I guess. Anybody can do anything, but it's not really connected to the rest of the network, right?
So sure it is, because it has to access the bank's website, right?
Yeah, it is to the bank. You're right.
It's funny, I was talking to my counterpart for the city of Hope, Arkansas, and we have an AIT, or an Arkansas IT listserv for IT directors. A lot of words there, and it's for city and county both. And so we have probably about 80 folks that are participating in that. And so I talk to my counterparts all over the state in city and county government every day. And I think it's city manager. I may have got that wrong, because they're either city manager or mayor, whatever, whoever his administrator is, came to him and told him that what he wants him to do is because he's asking for, like all of us, we're asking for more and more money every year, right? I mean, that's the unfortunate circumstance of all these bad things that people are doing, is we have to spend more and more money to try to put another layer of defense in, put another layer of defense in, put another layer of defense in. And, how much is too much, I don't know. The reality is we don't know. I just know what I focus on is how we're going to recover from that, and how easy it's going to be for us to recover from that when it does happen. So we put the layers in, and we try to delay it and try to hope that it's kind of like if you have a house and you have a bunch of security cameras and you have alarms and you have all these signs, and the burglar sees your house, and then he goes to the house next door and the front door is open. Which house is he going to go to, right? And so that's the approach that we take, basically, is to try to make ours look like a less viable target. But doesn't mean that if your house has an alarm and cameras on it, they can't bust the door down and steal all your crap. I mean, they're going to if they want to bad enough. And so, but ultimately, that's where we spend our time and effort. But anyhow, back to City of Hope, his city manager, whatever it is that he answers to, basically asked him to disconnect their financial system from the internet. And so he wants him to go back to basically 20 years ago, where his financial system is on a dedicated network with dedicated computers, with dedicated server, and that is isolated. So that's what you're talking about in the bank. So if you had a banking machine that was disconnected off, then but how would you get the banking records to and from it, right? How is he going to get his financial records to and from this dedicated network? Well, he's going to have to use a thumb drive. He's going to have to use some kind of transfer mechanism, right? Well, what's protecting him from the thumb drive? So you put the thumb drive in this machine and you carry it over to this secondary network that's isolated. You just introduce something to it. So there is no way in real life to have something completely dedicated. There is, but it's, like I said, it's got to be a machine and a piece of software that's literally used for nothing but that. So we might have an HVA system. So we might have a computer computer that's dedicated to an air conditioning system that's literally that's only two things that it does. The only thing it does, and that might be an isolated machine that does that, but that's very, very rare anymore. So your banking machine is connected to the internet so that it can transfer stuff back and forth. Now, we don't put any other software on that machine. We don't use that machine for anything else. So because obviously the highest threat, and this is bar none still, I just got back from another conference, and I go to a couple a year. And, the people from CISO and MSI-SAC are federal agencies, divisions of Homeland Security. These people are seeing this all over the country, so they're as much in the know of anybody that I know. And they're still saying that basically the biggest threat vector is through email, right? So 90+% of all the attacks happen through an email. So people clicking on links or opening attachments through emails. That's still or being phished. So you open an email and it says, hey, put your username and password in there, right? And they steal your username and password. So City of Fayetteville, 2 months ago. So I was talking to him, and they had to take 500 desktops and wipe them completely clean of Windows, reload Windows and every application on 500 computers to recover. Yeah, so I mean, we're talking months and months worth of work to try to recover. They got most of their core operating systems back up fairly quickly because they had good backups. And they spent no telling how much money, because that's the other thing is, we don't really know how much money it's going to cost us to recover from this, right? We don't have cyber insurance at the county.
Did that involve ransom?
It did. Yep, they were ransomed. And
did they pay? I
They
don't
did not.
don't understand that principle of we're saying give us this much money and they give it to them.
Well, and so a lot of people have a problem with that. And as a matter of fact, there was a last legislative session, there was somebody that tried to put a bill up that said it was illegal for cities and counties, that it would be illegal for cities and counties to pay ransomware, and I thought that was really kind of ridiculous. The reason why I say that, let me finish, is because if you have no other way to recover your data, and that literally happens. I mean, the city of Texarkana got owned, and they had to pay the ransomware because they literally had data that existed nowhere. It wasn't backed up, wasn't, for whatever reason. Like I said, it doesn't matter. Hindsight's 20/20, right? Yeah. It's gone now, and these records exist. And if it's records that you have by law you have to keep for the rest of your lives, do you think you should pay the ransom to get them back? I mean, that's the question, right?
Sure.
And so I would hate to be in the position. I'm not saying that you should pay the ransom, you should jump up there and pay the ransom. I'm not saying that. 1,000%. Do everything you can to not pay the ransom. And that's why we do a disk to tape to an appliance to cloud backup scenario. So we have many, many, many layers of backups, and with different applications from different vendors. So it's not even all the same vendor, because I don't trust one vendor to not get owned from A to Z, right? And so you take that approach because I don't want to pay ransomware. But ultimately, if I don't have any other way to recover from this, and you tell me it's illegal for me to pay ransom, that's really kind of silly. Now, should you say it's that should be your last line of defense and pay some, I don't know how you legislate that, but anyway. Ransomware, but back to your original question is why would anybody pay the ransom, and what makes you think you're going to be successful is what a lot of people say. Well, if you think about it, if you go to a car dealer and you expect them to fix your car and they don't fix your car, are you going to come back? You're not going to go back there, right? No. Okay, so you only go back because they did it successfully, right? And you're going to stick with that. Well, ransomware has the same approach. If they don't successfully give you your data back, their business model is worthless. I mean, their whole business model is predicated around the fact that they're going to get money from you and then go after the next guy and get money from him and go after the next guy and get money from him. But if they don't actually follow through with what they said they would do, if you thought that there was no chance that you're going to pay this and no chance that you were going to get the result, you would never pay it in the first place.
Well, in a market like Fayetteville, you mentioned in El Dorado or Texarkana?
Texarkana.
Do they publish is that like public knowledge what they
I'm sure.
paid? Did you hear what they paid?
No, I haven't followed through with those, and I'm not sure that anybody's asked that question. I did see a stat the other day, so the city of Dallas was probably some of these folks know more about this stuff than I do because they're in the knowledge. But so you guys feel free to correct me if you're wrong. But ultimately, I just saw an article last week that the city of Dallas, and I think it was like 6 to 9 months ago, they got ransomed, and I think they're up to 8.6 million. You know, and so, like I said, ultimately, and that's just the beginning. I know the city of Atlanta several years ago, and they started out at like a few million, and last I heard, it was like up to 22 million is what it cost them to recover from it.
A mafia mentality. Once they get to milking something, they
Well,
are they going to come right back and continue milking?
No, they didn't come back and continue milking. That hasn't happened. I have never, and that's the fear that a lot of people present, is that, well, once they own you, they're just going to keep coming back. I don't know anybody that's actually been owned a second time, a third time, a fourth time. That's the same folks. Now, is that possible? Sure it is. You know. That's not what Randy told me. So, the city of Little Rocks, Randy Fauché is the IT director there, and that's not what he told me. The city of Little Rocks and any of those big cities have unique situations. The IT is very complicated, right? You know, we're small enough, and we still get somewhat complicated with all the different divisions of the Garland County, right? And all of the people in control and have control their budgets and wanting to control their own destiny. But you guys, this organization, not me, have done a really good job of kind of reining that in. I'll just tell you that. When I started here in 2009, how many years ago that was, working for you guys, it was a mess. I mean, we had 3 different IT vendors just in Garland County. We had 3 different, you know, this group of folks was using this guy, this folk was using this guy, and with varying levels of satisfaction and dissatisfaction. Most of them were dissatisfied, but to varying levels. That's what prompted them. You guys, it may be before your history, but the way you guys have got us as a consultant was, the judge at the time and the assistant at the time came to me and said, "Hey, would you help us vet vendors? Would you just help us be a consultant, you know, for free?" And I told him I'd be happy to help them with anything. And so on a basis, I sat in a lot of the meetings and helped them write RFPs and proposals and submit the proposals and evaluate those proposals. And we went through about a year-long process. And they didn't really like any of the results. And at the time, I had thought about it. And so I said to them at the time, I said, well, you know, what if I came up with some kind of proposal where maybe we could provide this service to you as a third party? And they said, well, you know, let's talk about that. And so we went to the Quorum Court, we went to the board of directors, and we went back and forth several times to work out some kind of an arrangement. And that's how this arrangement came to be. But it was because of the you know, basically the non-centralized way that you guys were managing your IT resources that brought this about. And so when you talk about City of Little Rock and places like that, Randy doesn't necessarily control a lot of the entities. You know what I'm saying? So when you get in those big organizations, it's like the state of Arkansas, they got DIS, right? Well, but DIS doesn't tell Game and Fish what to do. DIS doesn't, you know, they're all like you guys in the county. They can control their own destinies, and they can say, well, we're going to do this or we're not going to do that. So they don't have to use the same software. They don't have to use the same. And so a lot of the cities that I deal with are in that same scenario. So that may be what you're discussing is
It was the school board that got it.
Yeah.
It wasn't the city, let me clarify.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, but I don't know anything about that one, but like I said, I don't know of anybody. I've known probably 10, 15 people that have been ransomed in my career.
Let me ask you
Personally,
this.
so.
You said that back when you started in 2009, there was 3 different providers. Right now, just for my education, our education, is the 911 and the sheriff's department and the detention center and the county government, are you over IT? I really, you know, should know this, but what's the purview of your scope of oversight? Is it all of those?
So when you talk about 911 in particular?
Well, is it a unified software or hardware or your oversight? Is everything under one umbrella? 911, Sheriff's Department, Detention Center, county government?
Yes.
Okay. And your IT position is over all of
We help
that?
all those
See,
individuals.
I didn't even know the
Yeah, every agency in the,
scope of how broad, since you said there was a
Sure.
breakdown before, I didn't know whether there was still a breakdown of IT somewhat done independently or separately, and this, that, or the other.
and I wouldn't consider it a breakdown, but there is one division that we don't manage. So we do everything in the city and everything in the county both, except for the library.
Except for the library.
Yeah, and the library has their own they have, I think it's Adam Beck's his name, and so they basically have their own IT person on staff, and they did it back then, those days as well. He's been there since as long as I've been around.
Tremendous advantage for
Sure.
Garland County to have everything under one umbrella, and, you know.
And it's very beneficial for a lot of reasons. You guys pay, through this contract, you pay and like I said, I'm getting into a lot, we're getting off in the weeds here, but this is good history for you too, even if it's, I don't know, some of the folks in the room know about this and we're here, but ultimately, we have three full-time employees dedicated to the county. So 3 technicians basically, and one of those technicians is at the sheriff's office. So he's pretty much dedicated to public safety. So he spends the vast majority of his time helping the sheriff's office, the detention center, 911, dedicated to them because they're large at the city as well. I have the same thing at the city. I have one technician dedicated to the police department at the city. And then we have 2 technicians at the city that are city technicians, level 1, level 2, and then 2 county technicians, level 1, level 2 there. And those 4 folks are in my office. So when anybody at the county calls the number at my office, there's numbers dedicated to the county, but if that doesn't get answered, it rolls down, and the next person that answers is either the second level county person, which we don't have right now because he just quit on me a couple weeks ago. Okay, so we only have 1 technician right now, but level of service nobody knows because the level of service doesn't drop because now the city technicians answer the county calls, and vice versa. And so, like I said, it was a huge advantage to you guys and to the city as well. There was good reason for that. So, and then we buy a lot of stuff. Our cooperative buying agreement. So we don't buy stuff for 300 machines and 300 machines. We buy stuff for 600 machines or 700 or 800 machines. And so a lot of the cost breakdowns are 0 to 500, 500 to 1,000. So we beat a lot of those thresholds because we do these cooperative agreements. And a lot of the stuff I buy, and then the city bills the county for that, for their half of it. So there's a lot of benefit. Now, I've seen a tremendous amount. I can give you a couple examples, but when we started working for you in 2009, you guys had a machine called an AS400, which the city had one as well. And you guys had this box, and you were getting this through one of those third-party consultants, and you were paying $25,000 a month maintenance, okay? Which, that sounds like a lot, but the AS400s were $250,000 machines. Okay, so these were expensive machines back in the day, but in the first 6 months, we replaced the AS400s you had with one that was 10 times faster, 100 times more storage, and it cost $25,000 one time, and the maintenance went to $2,000 a year, or $2,000 a month. Sorry. And then that's just one example of many things that we're not cost driven, right? We're cost driven. We're not income driven. We're not trying to produce income, right? So we're basically sharing those costs and passing those costs on to you, but we're not trying to derive any income from you guys. Whereas obviously any third party that's working for you had to, right? I mean, they couldn't stay in business if they didn't, so we're not begrudging them that. But obviously they couldn't provide. It always kills me. We're going to outsource. Right? We're going to outsource IT. Well, how do you think that's going to work out better for you? Because they're either going to provide you a lower level of service, or they're going to provide you the same level of service, and it's going to cost you more because they can't spend the same amount of time, and we're paying employees $12, $15, $16, whatever, $18 an hour, right? And they're having to pay their same employees that same amount, plus they're having to make profit to drive the business, right? So it never made any sense to me as how you're going to outsource this. The only way you could outsource it was to basically say, we're going to have this. If I had guys sitting around with nothing to do, with a lot of free time, then you could outsource it and make it profitable, because then you could take the time spent and have one employee do more things. And that's what we did basically by combining the two, is we made it more efficient.
Good, good. I've gotten
Body
you off
history,
on-
sorry.
I've gotten you off on multiple pig trails.
Yeah, that's
Forgive me.
okay.
Forgive me if you want to get back on your bullet points.
So
and-
back to what we were talking about, and where we drove off from that was that the MDR, EDR solutions, that's something that's relatively new. What I would mention for the group too is that coming up next year, that we've got some major things to revise, and the judge is fully aware of this. We've been talking about it since last year, so this is not going to be a surprise to him, but it might be something that you guys will be interested to know as the budget moves forward. So our current scenario is we have a primary data center in the county basement next door, and then we have a secondary data center out at DEM. Is it still called DEM? They keep changing their name, sorry. Or is it OEM now? Okay, sorry. And so anyway, we have a secondary data center out there, and so the idea being that if something happened downtown here, tornado, fire, whatever else, that we could all the servers, and again, you guys, I think I've explained virtual environments before, but they're not physical servers. There are physical servers, but they're running virtual servers. We have a set of physical servers at both locations that can run the virtual servers. So the virtual server that's currently running down here in the basement can easily be moved. It actually exists already out there. It's already backed up out there, and basically literally only has to be turned on. So if this one were to go away, we could turn that one on, and then we could hook up a bunch of computers out there at DEM, 10 computers or something out there, and basically connect those back to your financial systems, connect those back to your on-prem. A lot of the finance system one is a good example because it's cloud-based now, right? So all we have to do is but out at DEM, we have a secondary internet connection, for example. So if this whole place goes away, we have another internet connection, a second internet connection that's out at DEM. So this place can go away, and the financial system can still work. So we have, like I said, that's called our secondary data center. Well, those machines have to be replaced, obviously, on an interval, and they're getting to be 6 to 7 years old. We try to go 5+ years is kind of the goal, and then we kind of see how we are at 5 years and try to stretch it even further, and that's what we've done. But this coming year, those need to be replaced. And actually, what we do is replace the ones at the basement, and then migrate. Kind of do the hand-me-down approach to the secondary site because it's not as critical, and we put more machines out there that are more failure-prone and have less machines that are more reliable here. It's kind of the approach that we take. But that being said, there's going to be new servers bought at the basement. We also are in line to buy a new firewall next year, so that's going to come up. And with that, basically, we're looking at a kind of holistic data center refresh. So there's a whole set of stuff that involves, but that's going to come up, and you'll see that as I present my budget coming up next month. I guess it is in October. But I wanted to mention that to you ahead of time so that you guys could be, if you had any questions about that now, you could be asking me in case that comes up in any of your committees. But other than that,
Yes, last
ma'am.
time we did that, it was about 180,000. What do you think it's going to be this year?
It's going to be probably less than that, but it's going to be, it's going to be 100 to 150K. Yeah. I haven't turned my budget in yet, so when I get that, I'm still working on those numbers. What I'm telling you, but I'll have those. Obviously, our budgets are due the end of next week, right? Next Friday, not tomorrow, but next Friday, and I've got mine pretty close, so I'll have that number.
Okay.
But that's the number I've used in the past. I think is 150 or so. But that includes, like I said, a lot of different 10,000 for this, 10,000 for that, 20,000 for this, 20. Like I said, so it's not one thing that costs that much. It's actually a collection of stuff, quite a collection of stuff. Switches, firewalls, servers, all the above. So.
Has the PA talked to you about some software that they're looking at?
Not that I'm aware of, but I may have forgotten.
Okay.
So I don't know of anybody else that's actually talked to me about some big overarching changes. A lot of people have talked about, as you guys may or may not be aware, we send a report every August that basically tells everybody kind of the life expectancy of all their physical devices, their PCs in particular. And we have a suggested life cycle on those. Is it 4 years, I think? I think we suggest 4 years on the PCs themselves, but again, what we tell people is we're not telling you that it has to be replaced in 4 years. We're not saying that. We're saying that if you get the 4 years and you're having, issues, or you obviously can't wait to 7 years on every machine you have, or you're going to have every machine fail at the same time and you're going to be in a bind, right? So we tell them don't wait till, but if you have 20 machines, and what we suggest is replace a few a year.
Yeah.
And kind of stay on that 4 to 5 year life cycle, and so we don't have these big hits all at one time. But we have a lot of folks that keep machines 7, 8, 9, 10 years. And
Jeff, I'm going to send out an email to our department heads and make sure if they're planning to order machines out of this budget, they need to get
That's
them
right.
ordered.
Yeah, that's right.
Because, sometimes they'll wait till December and then they're crying because they got to pay for it out of the next budget because they won't get it in.
I know you guys in the past we might want to just cut that off at like November 15th or something and say, hey, if you don't get them ordered in by November the 1st or November the 15th, we probably should do that. We have done that in the past.
Okay. Yeah, so what date do you want to put on that?
I mean, in the past, I would have went longer, but obviously with supply, issues that we've had, if we want to say November the 1st, that wouldn't hurt my feelings.
Well, if they hadn't made their order by November the 1st,
Yeah.
then.
We need orders for new computers placed by November 1st.
And they need to do it through you guys.
And they do that, yeah, they know that.
Okay.
Yeah, just,
Okay, so
they
if
need to
they
get with
haven't-
us
if
now,
they haven't
between now and
submitted-
November 1st to get quotes and stuff moved forward to buy new stuff, yeah.
Okay. All right, I'll send that out.
Yeah. Because, the point is what she's saying is if you buy a computer, in December 1st, well, if Dell doesn't get it to us till after the first of the year, then you have to buy that out of 24 funds, not 23 funds, unless you carried that money over. And it presents a big problem for them in finance. It presents a problem for us because we're trying to rush and make sure we meet those deadlines. And so we try to, obviously our big times a year generally are the first of the year because everybody has money at the first of the year, and then sometimes around mid-year, and then sometimes usually at the end of the year. That's kind of the big, and the other problem they have is if everybody waits till the end of the year and orders 40 or 50 machines, then my guys don't have anything to do but build new machines for 2 months, you know what I'm saying? And so it presents a little bit of a burden on us, so we'd like to spread that out a little bit. Other than that, I don't have anything, overall. Anybody else have any other questions in general, or problems, or?
Larry?
Yeah, I would ask you, I know from the past meetings what you've talked about and things of that nature. I always review my notes. But the fact is that we always have some issues within the county that are problematic. So what would you say are the 2 or 3 top issues that create problems that we still have difficulty getting our arms around, if any?
The reality is I think we're. Oh, you want to say that again into your mic?
I don't have a mic. I was just saying that in past
You got him?
meetings,
Okay.
we've talked about difficulties, and most of them were involved with employee action. Not clicking on things that just come up, that kind of thing. But there are always, the human issue is the biggest issue in most things, I think, because machinery, you can control, it will only act in a certain way. So I was looking to see what your experience tells you where we are today that would be the 2 or 3 largest types of contributors to difficulties within the county. What's
Okay.
the biggest things we need to get our arms around at this point, if anything at all? We may be at a point where we're good shape.
Well, I'm glad you asked that twice, because when you first asked, I didn't think of anything, but I thought about it while you were asking the question the second time. So I would say, in general, first thing I'll say is you don't know what you don't know, right? So, again, my optimistic approach is that we're doing really, really well. From an IT perspective and from a business and the applications that we have and the systems that we're using, I don't hear a lot of complaints. There are people, everybody has a complaint about every software ever written, right? I don't like the way that it does this thing. So that's never going away. And I hear people all the time, well, we're going to get rid of this and we're going to buy a new thing. I'm like, okay, but you're going to fix the 3 things but you're going to find 3 new things you don't like. It happens every time. I've seen it happen over and over again in 32 years. But ultimately, I would say as a whole, I don't hear a lot of complaints, and I think things are going well. I think FI is doing a lot better, seems to. They've been responsive.
Yeah, we're paperless now on our invoices, and I think it's gone really well.
They've
for
been
everyone.
responsive and listening to your demands and concerns.
The departments have done an amazing job, and payroll, they do a really good job with that. We're still working to find a timekeeping system. We're working with ADP, and we're not getting you don't get a very good response from those people, unfortunately. So we're not going to use UKG because of Marion County. Marion County did not get good. They're actually trying to recover the money that they paid UKG. UKG is a big company, but we don't want to take that chance. If they're going to take advantage of a county like Marion County, we're not going to do that.
But overall, in general, I just, the 911 stuff you mentioned seems to be going well. Corky does a great job over there, and so, like I said, he stays on top of everything over there. But ultimately, and I know the city and the county are talking about merging that together, and that's going to be an interesting
You'll
from
have
an
your hands full there.
from an IT perspective to see how that plays out, because the city has what they use and the county has what they use, and it's not the same. But ultimately, like I said, the different departments that I deal with on a regular basis, I don't hear a lot of concerns. But when you asked the question the second time, that's what my answer was going to be the first time. What I did think about was that we have had a couple close calls. We had a county employee that clicked on something and gave some credentials away. We don't. So you're supposed to report breaches, right? But what was it, a breach or not? I don't. That's the thing is, it's not well defined. Was there any action? Did anything happen from that? Not that I'm aware of, right? And so we did all the things that we're supposed to do to be concerned about that and check on that and follow through with that. But ultimately, we saw no repercussions, so we may have just got lucky, right? Or a lot of times, like one thing that's interesting about the city of Fayetteville, what they think happened was that somebody harvested credentials somewhere, and then later on down the road, somebody sold those credentials on the black market to this hacker that then used those credentials with a ransomware attack. So it was kind of a combined approach. So this person that gave their credentials away at the county, which happened to be, just an average employee, so their exposure, our exposure to the world, even if they did give their credentials away and have their credentials, is limited, right? And so, but that was literally the day or 2 days before we implemented multi-factor authentication. So all of y'all have heard of MFA or dual factor authentication, multi-factor authentication, and most of you experience now you got to put your password in and you got to get a text and you got to put the number in, right? And the reason they do that obviously is because if somebody steals your username and password without that mobile device, they can't actually get into your account. Right. And so that's the second factor to prove who you are. And so we've deployed that at the city and the county both from all external connections. So anybody from the outside world that had Jeff's username and password could not get in from the outside world because they don't have my second factor. And that's another layer that we've added. But ultimately, the answer to your question is we've had a couple near misses, we think. And ultimately, you don't know. Right. For all I know, the reality is they talk about people that threat actors, they call them threat actors, but they can live on your network for months and months and months. And you don't even know because, for whatever reason, your systems aren't picking up their activity. Now, we hope that we have enough systems in play that we would pick up any activity that would be occurring if somebody was living on our system. But again, I can't promise you nothing. So did something happen 6 months ago when that happened? And is it out there waiting to lay a bomb on us? Potentially.
We won't know until it happens.
That we won't know until it happens. And ultimately it's the city of Fayetteville, for example. They aren't fully aware what actually did happen because, a lot of the things now, it takes so much time and effort to recover from them, and they don't know, they can't actually trace it back, to the guy broke the glass in and got in, because we got a video of it, it's not that simple, and even though they paid, and that's something that we might want to consider moving forward. We haven't. I keep hoping that the AAC, through the city, the AML provides cyber insurance for the city, but the county doesn't have that, I don't believe. And I think we've talked to AAC a couple times about that. We really need them to do that.
Was that at our last meeting, you mentioned of some grants and so forth, and Rebecca volunteered to look at those?
You're right.
So did anything come through?
I never heard any more
grants?
about that, no, from Rebecca, so.
Okay. And there's probably grants out there now you would like access.
Maybe
Can we
the
look at
grants,
those, Susan?
the grants we were talking about I have followed through with, so what that was state, it's called SLCGP, or just GCP anyway, grant program, I think it's GP. Anyway, what that was is the federal government gave the state some money and said, give it to cities and counties for cybersecurity. Well, the problem was they gave it to DIS/state DEM, and it's still stuck there. They haven't figured out a way to disseminate that money or haven't moved forward on that, because I'm actually still asking that question on a regular basis. So I don't think there's any money available out of the grant that we were talking about with Rebecca. But what I'm talking about specifically is they have do you guys have insurance through AAC?
We do have our insurance through AAC, and I'll ask Valerie to look at the cyber insurance and see if there's, I know the cities they're doing something through the municipal league. I don't know if AAC's offering that yet, but we're working on insurance and stuff right now because of, we're working on budget. And so I'll ask her to
I don't
look
think we
into
pay
that.
anything extra for that through the AML, but because we're on their insurance program, that is a value add to their insurance program. So maybe through your insurance program, you could get AAC to add that.
They did it kind of like the bond. They took it out of your turnback, so no, you're paying for it. You just don't see it. You're paying for it. So the same thing they could do, just like the bonding, we have a surety bond, on all of our employees in case someone commits a theft. We could do the same thing, but it's a minimal amount of money. It's what the municipal league charge. So I'll check into that and see if the surety bonds do anything like that, because AAC may not be, but they would know if it's something Arkansas is doing through our surety bond. They might be, because they pull a turnback for y'all's, is how they did it. It's at least that's what he said in his presentation, Municipal League.
Okay.
When I went to that AGFO. We've updated our website, and if you notice, it's a lot nicer than it was. We did a redesign. That's a good thing, I think. Atlaney and Anna did a really good job on that and worked with them. And we've also, what was that we were talking to Civic Plus about recently? I can't think.
Yeah.
We have a new FOIA system that John Howard, that he asked to have implemented. I think it's just been kind of a learning curve for everybody, but I think it's worked well. Helped with his time.
I'll tell you that's so it's a web-based FOIA system, so people can make requests through the web page and and then the whole submittal process on the back end for all of your folks and the city folks, because city actually just went on we're going on the same system as y'all. Mm-hmm. So y'all were actually 6 months ahead of us on that, and I'll tell you that Harmony Morrissey, who is our city clerk, has given you guys tons of kudos, because she's like, I call the county, and the county's up and they're helping me, and so like I said, she really appreciates, and we really appreciate you guys helping them with that. But it's going to allow basically all the employees to submit their requirements to that FOIA request or their answers to that FOIA request through a centralized.
What was the thing you go on for AI that tells you everything? Wouldn't that help with FOIA? Wouldn't that help?
GPT, it's amazing. We love it.
Do you use that on FOIAs?
Well, we use it on grants. Normally, when I get a FOIA, it's numbers. It's not going to ask me to write a letter. I'm sure a lot of people do. If I write an email and I just want to get to the point, and then I can put in Chat GTP and I can say, "Good morning," and and it adds all the friendly. You can make it professional. You can make it friendly. You can make it, if
Chat GPT won't search your internal stuff.
Yeah, it will make your
So,
conversation
Write the letter, you would have the
more-
information supposedly that it pulls into the letter.
It's great. We love it.
Whatever, we don't want to get.
Yeah,
The other
that's
thing
interesting.
that the
That's
counties.
another pig trail I don't need to get on. Hey, I want to thank Paul, and we will blame Paul in a real good way for nobody being here. They're all up in their departments with their phones and their laptops watching this meeting. So they're
Yeah.
here. They can access it streaming. Thank you. The library is streaming all of our
Okay.
meetings now,
Yeah, we
live
appreciate
and
that.
streaming. So that's everybody can get a notice, maybe send out a notice.
Another good thing that we're gonna do in this budget is we're gonna make our website ADA compliant, and it's gonna cost us a little bit, but it's worth it. It'll keep us from getting sued. And so right now, we're not totally in compliant. We are very good. We've got a great score, but we need a better score because we are one of the most transparent counties in the state of Arkansas right now. We're at the top. And even though we're smaller than some of the big ones, we're above them. So we've done a really good job on that. And so I have to give Laney and Anna have done a great job on getting that together. And there's something else I was going to, there's something else we're going to work toward is our Civic Ready. Civic Ready's only as good as the people who sign up for it. So if you're not signed up for the county notifications on our Civic Ready and we send out notifications, you won't get them. So we're going to do a campaign, and, I talked to the judge yesterday, and we're going to work with doing a campaign to get more people signed up for that so we can get our notifications out, say that maybe like the city does, the trash doesn't run that day or whatever, it'll send those notifications to people's phones, or for tax day or for whatever purpose, for something for Shelley's. If say there's a disaster in a certain area of the county, then we can send those out through our Civic Ready. But there's very few people signed up right now. So if you're listening, sign up.
Shelley, you get a star for showing up today. Thank you so much. And the web page is beautiful. And I'm telling you, I go to it 6, 7, 8, 9 times a week to look at resolutions or ordinance or agendas or whatever. And it's so user friendly because I'm not real good at finding things. And I can find things. I've gotten used to it, I guess, but it's just easy. I believe it's user friendly and really good for the public to be able to access everything, and probably for people in elected position, it's good. It looks good. And so I think Jeff said that about it.
That's all I've got.
Well, we'll adjourn. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for attending.
Appreciate it, Jeff.
Shelley?
Thank you so much.
Sure. Sure. And obviously, if you got any questions,